Questions keep swirling around whether the Bruins are going to be buyers or sellers at the upcoming trade deadline. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, currently the host of this show, as well as the Locked On Red Sox podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, also previously social media associate for ESPN. So if you want to hear daily Boston Red Sox talk, make sure to subscribe to that show on any podcast platform as well, and continue to subscribe to Boston Balling wherever you listen to podcasts, as I am here to discuss everything going on with Boston sports. Now, for those of you who are new to the show or unfamiliar, I cover the latest going on with all of the major Boston teams. So generally, my schedule for this show moving forward in terms of creating some consistency, just so you know what to expect, I generally plan on having Mondays be Patriots talk, Tuesdays Celtics, Wednesdays Bruins, and Thursdays Red Sox, with some other bonus episodes mixed in. So that's generally the schedule that I'm trying to go with. Obviously, it's a Thursday and I'm talking about the Bruins today, so I know that got thrown off a little bit, but with where we're at right now, generally plan for that. So if you have a favorite Boston team and you want to specifically hear my analysis on that team, those are the days generally to look out for. But I'm excited to bring you some Bruins talk today. This is a team that certainly has surprised us this season in terms of where they are versus where we thought they would be. This is a team that's fighting for a playoff spot right now. And going into the season, we really thought it was going to feel more like a rebuilding Bruins team. Last year at the trade deadline, the Bruins ended up being sellers and they had to make some hard decisions. We had to part ways with some key veteran players that really meant a lot to this organization. And that was a hard pill to swallow, but it ultimately ended up being the right move at the time, because that Bruins team last year wasn't really a team that could make a deep playoff run. And it also paid off because the Bruins were able to acquire a lot of talented young players that they can mold into that future core of what we should expect from the Boston Bruins moving forward. So being able to have guys like that who are going to contribute down the road is a great thing. And we're also seeing a lot of these young guys getting their opportunity already. That's been the big storyline from this Bruins team is, yes, while there are some veterans mixed in, which is certainly important to have with the team, you have a lot of young talent on this Bruins squad that really feel like they could be key pieces of the future of the Boston Bruins organization and where things stand right now. So when you think about the upcoming trade deadline, which is in March, so I know that feels like it's far off, beginning of March to be exact, but the reality is that there's not a lot of hockey before then. There's only 7 Bruins games prior to the trade deadline at this point, and that's because they have the Olympic break coming up in February. So there won't be teams playing for that couple week span for the Olympics, which, by the way, I'm very excited about too. Players representing their countries and playing in the Winter Olympics. So the trade deadline is going to come up quicker than you think. And the Bruins are at a point now where they could buy or they could sell. You could make arguments for either. You could make arguments that they should buy because they are fighting for a playoff spot, but you could also make arguments that they could sell because they're barely hanging on to the small chance of landing a playoff spot and not really knowing how deep they'll actually be able to go. So you could make an argument either way, but there is the possibility of doing a little bit of a mix of both. And on today's show, I'm going to be going over what a combination of that could look like, as well as previewing tonight's game against the Flyers and ranking some key Bruins prospects that we should keep an eye on. So when it comes to this trade deadline, what is interesting about it is that the Bruins are in a bit of a limbo right now. There is no definitive answer in terms of their bottom of the barrel, so they should be sellers because things aren't really working for them. They're not in the mode of championship right now, so they should be buyers and sell off potential future assets to be able to compete right now. So they're kind of in that middle ground where it's really hard to be the front office and make that type of decision. But what they could do is they could do a mix of both. So there are trade rumors swirling, linking the Boston Bruins to Rasmus Andersson, which was a nice little thing to think about. But only for the Vegas Golden Knights to swoop in and acquire the defenseman. So that ended up quieting any similar discourse or rumors for the time being. And at that time, it felt like there was a possibility that the Bruins could be buyers and go after him. But the back and forth surrounding him, even though he didn't end up landing with the Bruins, that does kind of open the box for the first time this season for the Bruins in terms of what the trade deadline could look like, and really feeling like there is a possibility that they could be buyers at this deadline. So if they do decide that they are going to sell, they could look into trading Pavel Zacha, who definitely is worth probably a first round pick based on last year's deadline. And that would set the organization up nicely to continue stacking future assets through the draft. Even a guy like Casey Mittelstadt or even Viktor Arvidsson, those are two players who have been valuable for this Bruins team this season, valuable enough to where they could be traded and the return could be strong. Even a second round pick I would take for those types of players. So that's another thing that they could do, is they could look to move one of those three players, and it would at least provide them a chance to acquire draft picks or a valued prospect that they could throw into their system. Based on these types of prices at the trade deadline, it probably is motivating for Don Sweeney to continue to move forward with the retooling without any bumps in the road. So it is possible that he views the buyer's market, which it truly is this year, kind of like it was last year, as an advantage and an opportunity to enter a buy phase for the organization's prospects and picks roster. So essentially what that means is that Sweeney could look at it and say, okay, it's a buyer's market right now. So we could use that to our advantage because we could try to compile a lot of teams' young talent to continue to focus on this retool. And that might not be a bad strategy, because if teams are willing to pay the price for win now types of players, that might be in the Bruins' best interest in order to be the most productive. Is, hey, we may make the playoffs this year, but if we do, are we really going to make a deep run? So if we're not, why not try to sell off some of our win now players and continue to bring in more and more young talent if it is truly a buyer's market? So that is a route that they could take. It's also possible to do a mix and match. I talked about this a little bit before too. They could deal Mittelstadt without moving Arvidsson or vice versa, but this approach would be the most difficult of the three because it's not really picking a lane, and I don't feel confident in its ability to really spiral them super far forward either way. With the team's record where it's at right now and the identity wavering based on intangibles more than anything else, the team's performance could potentially suffer significant losses if even a player like Sean Corelli were removed from the mix. So times are different now from when the front office could deal a few pieces and expect others to seamlessly fill those roles. This approach would definitely test Sweeney's ability as GM to navigate the transition from one era to the next, because if they're doing a little bit of a mix and match, they could move a couple players who maybe are a little impactful to this team, but hold on to the most valuable players, and then they're not really getting the full return for the future either, and they're kind of stuck in limbo. So if they do that and it doesn't enhance the team moving forward for this season that much, then how productive is that really if you aren't really feeling like you're in a place to where you got the team to be a true cup contender, but you also haven't set the future up much better either. So I would lean towards not doing that. It really does make sense to pick a lane. And even if the lane is that they're going to sell, it does feel like that could be disappointing for people because they are hoping this could be a special playoff team, but they're just not quite there yet to me as a team that can truly make that deep run. So that's why the mixing and matching strategy may not work out in their best interest, because you're not really putting yourselves that far forward and you're not really leapfrogging that much compared to where you're at right now. If they want to buy, which they could do, they could move a lesser fit like a Mason Lowry type and they could move some of their picks for a player who can help right now, absolutely they could do that. But if you've watched this team all season, it feels like adding one player or two wouldn't automatically align with what the Bruins are building right now, and it wouldn't necessarily put that team into immediate contention. The player coming to Boston would have to closely align with the forecheck that the team wants to play, and it's only a little bit easier to find depth players who fit that style than big names who do. They really are few and far between, and there's just questions surrounding what player could actually fit that mold. So there aren't necessarily a lot of true buy options right now for the Bruins that make a lot of sense for them. So that's why it becomes a question of, does it make the most sense for us to sell? Which it could, because you could argue that that would at least benefit in the longer term. They're still formulating a complete team. And from a front office perspective, this could be the way to go, because they could say, well, now we have brought in a good core of players that could help us now for years to come. And by selling players who are contributing right now, that would be the best way for us to go forward from here. And the reason that could be a tough pill to swallow is it's basically saying to the fans, look, this isn't necessarily a championship season for us, so why not move on from a couple of those bigger name win now pieces, take advantage of a buyer's market and collect more pieces. That's the direction I'm leaning towards, is that I feel that the Bruins should be sellers at this trade deadline, because you would be gaining more overall out of it than you would to kind of do a little bit of the mix and match, because this team isn't quite there yet to where one game-changing player could make them a playoff team 100% that can make a deep run. So we'll have to see what they decide to do. But coming up, I'm going to be previewing the Bruins' upcoming game against the Flyers tonight. Just a quick reminder to continue to subscribe to Boston Balling on any podcast platform if you want to get the latest in all things Boston sports. I am here to discuss all of the major teams with some bonus episodes thrown in there as well. Reminder, Mondays, Patriots, Tuesdays, Celtics, Wednesdays, Bruins, Thursdays, Red Sox. So if you want to generally hear about all of those teams, make sure that you're subscribing, and also make sure you're subscribing to Locked On Red Sox, which is my other show on any podcast platform as well. The Locked On Network is the #1 sports podcast network. I host their daily Red Sox show Monday through Friday. So with spring training coming up, you won't want to miss that one either. So make sure that you subscribe to both of those shows and follow me on social media for more. So we're almost at the NHL trade deadline, which is at the beginning of March. The Olympic break is coming up here. The Bruins only have 7 more games all the way up until all of that happens. And while we sit here and wonder what kind of approach the Bruins are going to take at the deadline, we also have to focus on the games that are in front of us. And they have a big game against the Flyers tonight. So there are some things to keep in mind and look out for when it comes to this Bruins team. So the second period has been the sweet spot for the Flyers this year, and they've been inconsistent all season long, but the majority of their goals, 54 to be exact, and their shots on goal with 499 to be exact throughout this season have prevailed in the second period. So the Bruins are going to have to be extra locked in that period in order to shut down the Flyers. As much discomfort as the Flyers can cause in the second period, they can also get away from their game too, as they've allowed opponents 65 goals and 489 shots on goal throughout this season. So that seems to be a period in which the Bruins can really set the tone for how this game is going to play out. So I'm looking at that second period as a really important period for this Bruins team. Bruins points from the back end. So Charlie McAvoy is going to be big in this game. He had 6 points in his last 5 games alongside 9 shots on goal. Plus he has 14 points in 23 career meetings versus the Flyers. So he's a player that I'm hoping will step up because of his history against this team in particular. And Hampus Lindholm also the other night when the Bruins were playing with a chip on his shoulder, and career-wise versus the Flyers, he'll have the chance to do it again. He has 14 assists in 21 games. So this is a really important player in this matchup. So if this is going to be a tight one, I expect those two players to really step up. So with the netminders, when it comes to that situation with the Flyers, if Sam Ersson, who enters tonight with an .860 overall save percentage, which drops to a .775 against high danger chances, other avenues that the Bruins could take in order to get to him is mid-range shots. The Flyers defense has allowed 191 shots during 5-on-5 play. So that's notable. So take advantage of the mid-range shots. Dan Vladar is their other big netminder. If he's playing in this game, he tried to steal the Flyers their previous game, but the efforts in front didn't end up panning out. He enters this game with a .904 overall save percentage, which drops to an .820 against high danger chances. So the key to success against him would be top of the slot, where the save percentage for him sits on an .800, and the defense has allowed 60 shots during 5-on-5 play. So those are the key aspects when it comes to getting to their goaltenders. So that's going to be a big thing to keep in mind. The blue line definitely has to buckle down. Bruins blue line as of late has been struggling a little bit, so that's going to have to be a little bit better. In terms of Bruins to watch out for as well, Tanner Jeannot, he has 6 points in 7 meetings with the Flyers, so that's going to be notable. Casey Mittelstadt, another player who I mentioned before when I was talking about the trade deadline and buying or selling, he has 15 points in 18 meetings with the Flyers, so those are 2 players that I'm looking at from the Bruins that could also really step up. So to summarize that, Jeannot, Mittelstadt, McAvoy, and Hampus Lindholm, those are 4 players who could really step up in this game for the Boston Bruins. They also called up Matt Poitras from Providence. He's kind of come up and gone back down. He's gotten some exposure to playing with this team. Also went back down to Providence. So I'm interested in seeing how a guy like him steps up if he gets that time on the ice. So that's going to be what should be a good matchup, but a game that the Bruins kind of do need to win if they want to be able to sell to the front office that they're a team worth investing in at this trade deadline. Because at the end of the day, the product on the ice is what's going to determine the moves from here. And if they just go out there and they start losing these next 7 games, then it would be really hard for the front office to feel like, okay, we should buy into this team and acquire pieces to help them right now. Whereas if they get to the point where they are winning these games, and say the Olympic break comes around and they string together 6 in a row or something like that, theoretically, then the front office might say, maybe this is a team that is worth investing in. So I'm focusing on these upcoming games and really grinding for these next 7. And that's why against the Flyers, they're really going to have to try to get to those goaltenders and get to the defense, utilizing and exposing the Flyers' weaknesses on the ice. So I'm really looking forward to this game. This is one that hopefully the Bruins are able to win. And the Flyers' top line has been really solid despite the inconsistencies this year. So they have a guy named Trevor Zegras who has 5 career points in 8 meetings versus the Bruins. So that's going to be another player that the Bruins are going to have to look out for and contain. But we will have to see how that all plays out. But overall, this is going to be a matchup where I'm looking for the Bruins to be particularly aggressive on offense and be able to get to those goaltenders early and stay locked in the second period, because that is the period in which the Flyers have excelled a lot this year. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But if you are excited about this season so far for the Bruins and where things are, I definitely don't blame you, because they definitely are performing at a higher level than people expected them to. And they're certainly surprising, myself included. And the exciting thing about that is that not only are they performing at a very high level right now, but the future is also very bright for this Boston Bruins club. And that's the best way to be, is when you're showing like you're ahead of schedule in terms of your rebuild. And it's feeling like they're ahead of schedule right now, and they have a great future lined up. So next I'm going to be discussing some of the top Bruins prospects to keep an eye on moving forward. Just a reminder to follow me on social media for the latest in all things Boston sports. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabby Maljanian. I'm pretty active all the time on there, talking about all things related to the Boston team. So you definitely will not want to miss that. During a game, just got to warn you, my tweets may not always be the most appropriate. Now, I know you're overthinking that. Just the excitement level is definitely there when I'm watching games. So just be prepared for that, my live game tweets. But you can also follow me on Instagram at Gabby_Maljanian10. You can follow both of my podcasts on Twitter as well, at Boston Balling and at LO_Red Sox. So make sure you're hitting that follow button for the latest in all things Boston sports. So we've talked extensively about the Boston Bruins season and the fact that they have been able to surprise people. And I truly believe that the best place to be is being a team that's overachieving and also being in a position to where you still have a lot of assets for the future. So you look at this team right now and you say, hey, this Bruins team is making a true case for being a playoff team. That's exciting because of all the young talent they have. But you also look at the young talent and you say, these are good future pieces. And the Bruins definitely have some really good prospects to keep an eye on. So when it comes to key prospects, one of them is James Hagens, a center who went to Boston College. In this season, he's played in 16 games with 10 goals and 8 assists. Hagens has almost matched his goal total from last season, which was 11 in 21 fewer games. So it obviously shows that he's developing at a really high level. His playmaking ability has truly been impressive, and he's playing with more intensity all over the ice. He also played very well for Team USA at the World Junior Championship in recent weeks, tallying 7 points with 2 goals and 5 assists in 5 games and dominating in puck possession. He had 2 assists in the quarterfinals against Finland, although the U.S. lost 4-3 in overtime in that game. So he has been key. And also the fact that he not only can step up for the Bruins, but can step up on an even bigger stage for Team USA is also a promising sign. So definitely keep an eye on Hagens for years to come, because he's going to be a key prospect for this Bruins team. He has top 6 center talent and is without a doubt the prospect with the most upside in Boston's system. And it's also really appropriate the fact that he also went to college in Boston. So it was kind of meant to be. So definitely keep an eye on him. Fabian Lysell, who's a right winger right now, he is currently playing for the Providence Bruins, and this season he's playing in 25 games with 11 goals and 15 assists. So it's definitely interesting that he hasn't gotten more of an NHL opportunity. He really hasn't gotten a lot. Boston could use his speed and his skill. He's been pretty consistent too, with at least 1 point in 18 of 26 games for Providence this season. So I definitely would like to see more of him. It's hard to really know what he's truly capable of unless he gets more of an opportunity. So at some point, the Bruins have to see whether he can be productive at the NHL level or not. And the only way to do that is for him to get a long stretch of games in Boston. He's not going to take any more dramatic leaps in his development against AHL competition. It has to be at the highest level. So this is a guy that I'm really intrigued by. I think there's a lot of upside there, but it's really hard to know for sure if he's going to be able to succeed at that level unless he gets those reps. So it's going to be kind of crucial for him to get those. Will Zellers, who's a right winger for North Dakota, his stats this year, 19 games played with 10 goals and 6 assists. He was the USHL Player of the Year in 2024 to 25 and has started his NCAA career in fine form with 10 goals in just 19 games. He was arguably Team USA's best player at the World Juniors, too. He led the team with 8 points total, 5 goals, and 3 assists over 5 games, including at least 1 goal in 4 of the matchups. So that's notable, too. These guys who are able to step up for Team USA at the World Juniors, that shows that they can compete on a big stage. And not only are they competing against other people within their organization or their college, if they're in college, but they're competing against the best in the world. So that's definitely really notable. He was acquired as part of the Charlie Coyle trade last March, a deal that has worked out very well for Boston so far because the Bruins very much needed more goal scoring talent on the wing. And Zellers should be able to help address that weakness at some point. So definitely an exciting prospect to look out for. Dean Letourneau, another popular player here. His position is a center for Boston College. This year, 18 games played, 11 goals, 8 assists. After a tough freshman year, he is having a breakout sophomore campaign for the Eagles. His shot accuracy has improved, and he's using his size to win puck battles in the tough areas of the ice. You can tell he's playing with a lot of confidence, and he leads the Eagles with 11 goals. So young players who have confidence, that's great because that could hopefully translate when he plays at the higher level. So if he continues to play well, hopefully he'll bring that confidence along with him as he continues to develop and continues to work his way up. He does skate really well too for someone listed at 6'7" and 220 pounds, which is one reason why he has drawn comparisons to Buffalo Sabres star Tage Thompson as a result. Letourneau's potential is definitely enormous, and his improvement at BC this season is one of the most encouraging aspects of the campaign this year for the Bruins. So this kid is fun to watch. And it's exciting to think about the possibilities for him. If he's being compared to a guy like Tage Thompson, that's quite the compliment because Tage Thompson has found a lot of success at the highest level. So definitely looking forward to seeing what Letourneau can do. Chris Pelosi, a center for Quinnipiac. He's played in 20 games this year with 11 goals and 10 assists. He's another Bruins prospect making a year 2 leap in college. He has a rocket of a shot and is playing with more physicality all over the ice. He can play in a lot of different situations and has improved his two-way skill set as well, which is huge. The Bruins did not make a pick in the first or second rounds of the 2023 NHL draft, and the class as a whole doesn't look super promising, but they might have something with Pelosi, who they selected in the third round of that year. So definitely keep an eye on that. Any player who can play the two-way skill set really effectively can naturally have high hopes for producing at the highest level. So that's another prospect to keep an eye on. So in summary, you're looking at guys who are primarily in college at this time between Hagens and then Zellers and Letourneau and Pelosi. Those are all young hockey players who are ready to succeed at the highest level. So I'm definitely intrigued by them. And then you have Fabian Lysell, who's in Providence. I'm hoping he gets more of an opportunity at the NHL level so that the Bruins can really see what he could become. But the moral of the story with this is, while those are key Bruins prospects to look out for, there's no denying the fact that overall the future is so bright for the Boston Bruins and where they could end up over the next few years, because we are entering a time now where this is going to be a key time for the Bruins to give their young guys an opportunity. And I know I talked about the trade deadline earlier on in today's show, but this is prime time to where if the Bruins decide to be sellers at the trade deadline and they continue to focus on their future again, this is the perfect opportunity for them to be able to showcase some of these young players and give them the opportunity. You see this with a lot of sports too. If a team decides they're going to sell at the deadline and they're focusing more on the future, the benefit to doing that is that they would know, okay, we're probably not going to make a deep run this year. So let's just try to get some of our young talent some more opportunities on the ice so that we can really see what we have for the future. Because not only does that help them develop the confidence to play at the highest level, and it helps sets the Bruins up for the future, but it also helps the front office to know, okay, here's where we have a lot of depth in the system. Here are our strengths moving forward for the future. And here are our weaknesses or areas that we can get better when it comes to upcoming drafts and even in trades moving forward. What positions should we be addressing for the future? So there are a lot of benefits to trying to give your young guys a shot. And I know it sounds like giving up on this year's Bruins team by saying they should sell. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying more. I don't see this Bruins team realistically as a team that can make a deep run right now. And I don't feel like one or two big players is going to drastically change that. I just feel like they're a little bit removed and they're still missing some pieces to really make them a genuine contender. So because of that, I'm saying it might be in their best interest still to look forward to the future and focus more on moves that they can make to help the future of the Boston Bruins franchise. So we'll have to see how they decide to do that and how that all plays out. But I'm excited about the future of this team. I'm excited for tonight's game. Hopefully the Bruins walk away with a win in this game. And I'm excited to see where things go because there definitely is the potential. There's the ability. This is a team that's going to continue to grind every day. Marco Sturm is going to continue to motivate them. And we're hopefully going to continue to get some young guys some exposure to see where this organization is at. So looking forward to where things go. Let's go Bruins. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to tune in tomorrow. I have a special episode coming out tomorrow where I am interviewing Kaylee Fratkin-Lee, who used to play for the Boston Fleet of the Professional Women's Hockey League, now has transitioned to the broadcasting side, covering hockey in Boston. So you won't want to miss that. So make sure you check that out too. And let's go Boston sports. I'll catch you next time.